About half a year ago I reviewed the Eachine E010 or 010 and, seemingly in line with the general consensus, thought it was a pretty solid Blade Inductrix clone, especially taking the dirt cheap price into account. One thing that did strike me as odd though was why Eachine didn't offer an FPV version of it, since indoor FPV was probably the purpose most people who bought it had in mind anyway. Well, now they do. In fact, in not one but two variants. The E010C, a basic FPV upgrade, and the E010S, which also includes a programmable flight board and more powerful motors. Because of my continuing fascination with low-end stuff, this is the former, meaning largely the same aircraft as I've already reviewed. Therefore, this shorter mini-review, if you will be focusing on the FPV aspect of the quadcopter. But let's get right to it. Welcome to this review and flight test of the E010C micro FPV quadcopter from Eachine. Before even having a look at the quadcopter itself, we can recognize one positive of the Eachine E010C, namely its very reasonable price. It currently retails for only $37 including shipping, and that gets you everything you need to get airborne, a type of kit usually called ready to fly or just RTF. The RTF Blade Inductrix FPV is $200, more than 4 times as much, and assembling your own tiny whoop from scratch will, according to my rough estimate, set you back around $150. While $37 will get you airborne, it won't quite get you started with FPV though. For that, you also need something to receive and show the video feed captured and transmitted by the all-in-one FPV module on the quadcopter. This can be a monitor, but I highly recommend a pair of FPV goggles or glasses. A basic pair like this costs only around $50, keeping the price tag for becoming completely FPV ready under $100. Of course, a low price doesn't excuse a poor product, so what does $37 get you? In terms of the actual contents of the box, you can expect the quadcopter itself, including a 150 mAh single-cell battery with an increased discharge rating, a USB charging cable for charging it, a 150-degree field of view 800 TVL camera combined with a 25mW video transmitter, a toy-grade transmitter, a set of replacement propellers, and 2 instruction manuals, one for the quadcopter and one for the camera. You may have noticed that the camera doesn't come pre-installed, which basically makes the E010C a regular E010 with an FPV module thrown into the box. At first, I thought this was lazy, but mounting it is actually very simple, requires only the included rubber band and double-sided tape, though getting the lens perfectly centered and level is another matter, and actually gives you the option of starting off without FPV, which is great for beginners who first want to learn flying line of sight. The quadcopter itself is just a straight up rip-off of the Blade Inductrix, but in terms of quality, actually comparable, on some points like overall toughness, even superior to the original. Now, the weakest link of the E010 lies in the included transmitter. It's probably one of the worst toy-grade transmitters I've used, and the sad part is that it's only beginners who are affected, as the protocol it uses at this point has been implemented in most alternative transmitter solutions, like Deviation, shown here. Using the E010C with a stock transmitter isn't a very satisfying experience, due partly to how it's designed, like its uncomfortably small size and short stick travel, partly to how it functions, like its low resolution and large deadband. Still, it's flyable. With a hobby-grade transmitter on the other hand, the quadcopter flies very nicely. I find it virtually undistinguishable from the real deal. In most of the footage seen in this review, I'm using the Devo 7E. The E010C offers 2 well-balanced and varied rates, as well as your typical toy-grade features: automatic flips, headless mode, and return to home. Though with the camera installed, the quadcopter becomes too heavy to pull off flips very successfully, and headless FPV just doesn't make any sense. Thrust, which can be an issue with brushed micro FPV setups, is adequate, though it does decrease noticeably as the flight goes on. As for the FPV aspects, it's almost entirely good news. Camera outputs a nice image with good detail and well-tuned brightness, contrast and colors, while the video transmitter produces a signal that may not look especially impressive in my footage, but then you have to keep in mind I'm basically flying in a box of steel, glass and concrete. In practice, I found it perfectly serviceable, with a range neither better nor worse than other 25mW mini video transmitters. Without anything to angle or lift up the camera, you may notice the quadcopter itself takes up a significant portion of the view. This didn't bother me much, but it's still strange that Eachine didn't include a basic camera mount, given such already exists for similar FPV modules and are very cheap. On the upside though, this way you can see the front LED, thereby the LVC warning, from the first person view. One of the biggest positive surprises about the E010C is the flight times. I consistently get over 4 minutes of actual in-air time per charge on the included 150 mAh battery, which for comparison is nearly double what the Inductrix FPV ended up delivering despite a bigger 200 mAh battery. This is great to see, especially as flight time is such a common problem within micro FPV, though to be fair, the quadcopter as stated do lose some of its thrust before the LVC warning triggers. In conclusion, the Eachine E010C is one of, if not the cheapest way to get into indoor FPV, but it's far from the worst. On some points like durability and flight time it beats competitors costing twice, 3 or 4 times as much. The only time you're reminded of that low price is when you're dealing with the included transmitter, though this can be avoided by upgrading to one of several multi-protocol transmitter solutions. The Eachine E010C isn't the sportiest, most powerful or customizable micro FPV quadcopter money can buy, but what it has is enough to still offer lots of fun. Because of this, I've flown the quadcopter extensively over the last couple of weeks, and because of the good flight times, every flight has felt worthwhile to prepare and set up. Based on my experience, I say, if you're curious about FPV, have a look at the Eachine E010C. That was my thoughts on the Eachine E010C. Just so you know, I'll be away traveling for a couple of weeks, so the next video will probably be a little bit delayed. Once again, I want to thank everyone who supports the channel by leaving kind comments on my videos. It means more to me than any YouTube statistic. Alright, see you soon in another review. Bye!